think we're ready to start. As you probably know, we're also videoing today, so this will probably be the one that's going to be on YouTube. So try to get everything together and so on. And let me thank all of you, first of all, just for being here this afternoon. Those of you on YouTube that will be joining us, thank you also for the goodies you brought this afternoon. They'll just be nice. The presentation, welcome aboard. Hi, Marge. Take your time, take your time. Yeah, and just make sure you get a packet, Marge. They're sitting right over there on the table. You'll need the packet. And at any time you feel like you need to get up and so on, please feel comfortable to do so. Let me just give you a little outline of what we'll be doing today. The program, we're scheduled from 1 to 4, and we're probably going to go from 1 to 4. There are two parts to the program today. The first one is called Meditation 101. And in this particular session, I'm going to talk about what meditation is, but I'm going to do it in a way that's a little different. We're going to frame it on the basis of your sense of self, or on one's personal identity. I'll talk more about that as we begin the session. And then we'll have an extensive meditation at the end of that first session. And then we'll have our break and our snacks and so on. And then in our second session, it'll be entitled Meditation 1001, where we're just going to bump it up a little bit and take the notion of meditation and raise it into just a little bit of a higher experience. So I think for anyone who has never meditated before, you'll learn a lot today. For those of you who have meditated before, you'll learn a lot today as well. So hopefully it's going to be a very, very nice experience for everyone. And I just can't tell you what a joy it is to share this with you. My feeling will be, this is the fourth of the 5 we're going to be doing. In our previous 3, everyone has felt pretty good at the end. And you might want to say goodbye to your present self, because by the end, you might be a tad different over here. There's just going to be an energy that's very beautiful with everything, and hope it'll be a very beautiful experience for you. So we're going to begin, and should just be fun. Don't worry about anything else that's going on, people coming in and so on. So I'm going to ask you if you would just open your packet, but don't take anything out until I tell you, if you wouldn't mind. Don't take anything out. We got those couple of students all the time, all the time. Come on in, no problem. Jennifer, we have a seat for you right back there, right around in that Darrell area, right back in there. If you can scoot over one. Or up here, yeah. And Jennifer, you'll need one of the packets, please. Yeah, that's all you'll need. Welcome aboard, Jennifer. Good to have you. What I'd like to ask you to do is, first of all, on the right-hand side, if you would just take out this particular sheet on the right-hand side, just take it out of your packet. For some of you, this will be familiar, because what we want to do is to build on the fall retreat in today's retreat, but raise it up to just about a kind of a different level. So if you just kind of take a moment to look at this particular handout, what's very important is that in order for us to be able to live successfully and to live joyfully, you have to have a vision of what you're doing here. Because most people aren't quite sure what they're doing here, outside of the fact that, well, they're doing something, but perhaps maybe don't really have a bigger picture of what's going on and why they're here. So I'm going to suggest to you that this is our vision statement of what we try to do in awareness work. You are here, right here, to embody these physical bodies of ours, the divine spark of your soul, so that we believe that our fullest identity, we are an eternal soul, that we have come here to embody that spark. So I just want you to know that that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to be talking about embodying this spark of our souls. That's really what we're doing here, so that we might create heaven on earth. Or you might want to say, we're just the ongoingness of the extension of the divine here on the planet, creating, embodying the gifts that each one of us has that lies at the very center of our soul. So just ask you to just take a second just to kind of get a grip on that. You are here to embody. What am I doing here? Well, I'm putting into expression, physical expression, that divine spark of my soul, so that I might create heaven on earth. And that's what we're going to be doing in our workshop today. We're going to be talking about, first of all, how we get to that divine spark, and then secondly, how to embody it. So you can just put that now on the left-hand side in front of the other handouts on the left-hand side. Now after that, it's pretty easy with the handouts. On the right-hand side, then you'll see the notes session for session number 1, meditation 101. So you can just take those notes out and make any notes there, and then session 2 will be right after that. So you can just take those out, and you won't need your packet again until we start the second session. So let me again try to explain to you exactly what we're going to be doing. In our first session in Meditation 101, I want to talk about meditation. Eventually, I want to define what it is, what its purpose is, and then to do it. Because you can talk about it all day, but until you do it with a group of people, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And we're going to do it with a particular aspect, which will be kind of interesting today. And then in the second session, we're going to be talking Meditation 1001. We're going to talk about the soul expansion, how we can embody the soul that is within us. So in our first session today, we're going to be talking about Meditation 101, what it is. We're going to do it from a particular framework, and my goal is at the very end that you will be in touch with your soul, that you will be in touch with your soul, yes indeed, that eternal part of you right here, and that we will then build on this in the second session on how to embody that soul. My goal is to teach you these two techniques so you can do it any day, so that you feel very comfortable at the end how to get to that place within you, and then to be able to embody it, to be able to bring it into manifestation, so that it'll be a very simple process. Oh yes, yes, I can get to my soul awareness. Oh yes, I know how to manifest it so that I can express it and bring heaven to earth. That's the goal. So let's begin by talking about a little bit about meditation and a few things that I'm going to show you how we're going to proceed. So whenever we're talking about meditation, there are 1,000 books on meditation, and you can read them all and so on, and sometimes at the end of reading all of them, in a sense, you're still confused. Or many people say they meditate, but whenever you ask someone, what do you meditate on, or how do you meditate, sometimes it's very indistinct. So what I want to do today is to teach you what meditation is, but I want to do it from a particular framework. And the framework we're going to use is your sense of self. Your sense of self. So when we start talking about meditation, I want to approach it from the notion of your sense of self. You're sitting here right now, and whenever you talk about spiritual things, it's very important to be able to ground those things, to make them very, very practical. So if we're going to talk about meditation, it has to be related to you. You're sitting here right now, and so what's your sense of self? What's the self that when you say the word I, you conceive yourself to be? So what I'm going to suggest for most people anyways, that there are two visions of self, or there are two senses of self. The first sense of self for most people, let's get our little person up here again. Probably very familiar to you by now, I imagine. But the first sense of self I'm going to suggest is what we would just call the outer self, or if you like, the outer you. So you're sitting here right now, and each one of us has an outer us. There are some other names we can give to it. We can call it the worldly self. If you want to call it the human self, that's fine. I think those words, in a sense, let's make that the worldly self. So that there is an outer part of us, and each one of us has this outer part. There are two parts to this outer part, in a sense, which most distinguish or most make up our outer self. So let's begin, first of all, with the first of those two parts. What makes up each one of us is we all have life circumstances. Every one of us has certain situations in life that make up our life, and let's just call them life circumstances. I'll just give you a few of them. Probably the most primary of life circumstances for most of us are our relationships, the people in our lives, the meaning that those people have for us, the meaning that we have for them. So that for many people, their life circumstances are the most important thing in their life by way of relationships. The people in their life are just the most important, and their sense of self is determined by, well, how the relationships are going with a significant other, with children, grandchildren, friends, whatever it might be. And then secondly, there's kind of like your worldly situation. And by your situation, I mean, are you working? Are you free? What you're involved in, and so on. Just the different areas of your life. If you're working, have a job, that takes up a lot of your life. But if not, if you're dealing with family, certain organizations, whatever, all of those things come into your play too. And for many people, the things they're involved in are very, very important. It's their sense of self. And then, of course, there's your social status. So when you're talking about your social status, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you live alone, whether you live with a group of people, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're black, whether you're white, lots of different social strata that have a tendency to become an identity for many people. And then lastly, I would just suggest there are your possessions. Not just the things you own, but the homes you live in perhaps, the condo you might live in, your money, your possessions. Will I have enough insurance? Do I have enough money to take care of myself, etc.? So that all of these things have a lot of responsibilities. And for many people, their sense of self is tied up with their life circumstances. Not saying that's bad, not saying it's good. Just for many people, they define themselves by, well, their life circumstances. The second external part of oneself, the second part of the outer you, and again, try to see yourself in all of these things. The second part of the outer you is your body, your physical self. And whenever you start talking about your body, you're talking about your health and all of the body processes. All of the body processes, in addition to health, there's food, sexuality, rest. Your physical body can very much, in a sense, take over your identity, especially if you're not feeling well, if you're in pain, and so on. So that for many people, whenever you're talking about who are you, they would probably define themselves by maybe one or either or a combination of these two things on the outside of themselves, their life circumstances and their physicality or their body. Does that make sense? Just for many people, that's who they are. That's how they see themselves. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. It's just how some people would see themselves. Well, there's another part of you. The other part of you is a little more complex, and it has two parts. The other part of you, let's just simply call it the inner you. So you have an outer you, and there is an inner you. And the inner you has two particular parts to it that make it, in a sense, very, very interesting. The first part I'm going to call simply the lower inner you. The lower inner you. So as you're sitting here right now, not only do you have your outer you, but each one of us has an inner you. We're very complex beings. We're not very simple beings. A lot of complexity in our lives. And the lower inner you usually consists of two particular parts. The first one is your thoughts. So that each one of us, in a sense, has our thoughts, our minds. And we know that thoughts are very, very, very important. Thoughts are energies that oftentimes determine what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be engaged in, and so on. And we know that you're going to become whatever you think. No one can tell you what to think, but whatever you think is what you're going to become. So thoughts are very, very important. I'll share with you my worst piece of poetry. I might have done it before, I'm not sure. But it's a great indication of what the power of thought is. It's the worst poetry you'll ever hear in the world, but it is so bad. It is so bad you cannot forget it. My life will stink as it has always stunk if I continue to think as I have always thunk. It's the worst piece of poetry, but nevertheless, it's so bad you can't forget it. My life will stink as it's always stunk if I continue to think as I have always thunk. The notion very simply is whatever you're thinking, that's pretty much what you'll be becoming. If you want to change your life, well, change your thinking, change your thoughts. So each one of us, in a sense, has this inner part of us. As you're sitting here right now, you have these voices in your head, these ideas that are surfacing, going on in and out of your mind, and so on. In addition, there's another part to the lower inner self, and that is those emotions. Those emotions, they're just there. There's no question about that. And those emotions are extremely powerful. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes elated, sometimes depressed, sometimes not a care in the world, sometimes harried, anxious, just not quite sure what's going on, and so on. So that the emotions are a very important part of ourselves. Each one of us, as we're sitting here, in addition to our life circumstances in our body, the outer us, there's also an inner you, comprised of your thoughts and your emotions. So let's just take a moment just to kind of reflect on that, just kind of digest that. So we're sitting here now. Well, there's an outer me. I have all of my life circumstances, have my body. And then there's what's going on within me. I have these thoughts and I have these emotions. And for many people, in a sense, their life is an interplay between their outer self and their lower inner self. So if you were to ask someone, well, who are you or what are you about? They would pretty well define themselves by, well, I'm engaged in all of these life circumstances, and these life circumstances influence very much my thoughts and emotions. Sometimes my thoughts and emotions influence my life circumstances. So there's an interplay. There's an interplay between the lower inner you and your life circumstances. Worst case scenario, your life circumstances just seem to be totally awry. Nothing seems to be going well. No matter what you try to do to change them, nothing seems to occur, and you feel like you're a victim. You just feel like, why bother? Everything's against me. No matter what you try to do, it just doesn't seem to work out. On the other hand, sometimes you have good scenarios. Sometimes you have your thoughts and emotions, and they're able to control, or at least keep in check for a while, your life circumstances and your physicality. It's kind of like Norman Vincent Peale when he gave us the power of positive thinking. If I can just keep my thoughts positive, just realistically, I'll be able to get through this particular situation. But there's a problem, just a problem. On your best days, your thoughts and emotions know that they are not in total control of what is going on in your life circumstance, or sometimes with yourself physically. So that even on good days, you kind of know that you don't control everything, because while things may be going well today, on the other hand, something might change, either with yourself or with someone else. That person you dearly love might just say something offensive to you. They just weren't thinking. That happiest moment all of a sudden comes, well, who are they to say what they're doing? Or there may be a change of health, either within yourself or with someone else. And you begin to realize that as you go through life, just realistically, that we are not in control, not only of our life circumstances and our physicality, but also sometimes we're not in control of our thoughts and our emotions. So it's a very, very perplexing thing. Many people are rather unhappy in life because these things just seem to be out of their control. Or even if they seem to be going well, there's the Buddhist three notions of illness, aging, and death just waiting there for you to eventually overwhelm you in life. So the question just really boils down to is that, isn't there anything stable about your sense of self? Isn't there anything stable about who you are that you could be able to draw upon so that you could deal with your changing life circumstances and your changing thoughts and emotions? Well, fortunately, obviously, there is. In fact, there are two things. So when we're talking about dealing with life and so on, in addition to the lower inner you, there is also a higher inner you. Just very important to know that. There's a higher inner you. This becomes such an important thing to understand. This higher inner you has two particular aspects. But before I go to those two particular aspects and describe them, I'm going to put another word to the outer you, both the outside of you and the lower inner you. The word I want to put to the outer you, your worldly self, is the word noise. There's a lot of noise that goes on outside of you. What is noise? Well, anything that disturbs you. Just a lot of noise, things that you're not in control of, just things that happen. And sometimes, when you look at the lower inner you, it's even noisier. Sometimes you just can't turn those thoughts off, just can't turn those emotions off. And you just feel these voices in your head, these feelings going through you. So there's a lot of noise on the outside of you, and sometimes in your lower inner self, in your thoughts and in your emotions, it's noisier even there. Thoughts in your head just running through. So in addition to a lot of stuff going on the outside of you, there's a lot of noise going on within you, which makes that higher inner you a wonderful, wonderful place. Because within you, within your sense of self, you have two still points. Two still points. So let's just take a moment to deal with those two still points. Very, very important to be able to understand and to see the importance of these things. The first still point you have is your higher mind. In addition to that lower mind, you also have a higher mind. And by your higher mind, what I would mean by that is that it's the accumulation of all of your wisdom. It's all of the smarts you've acquired in life. Now, you're sitting here right now, you're all smart. You've got a lot of things in life. You learned a lot of things from your family. So when you talk about the higher mind, we're talking about the accumulation of your wisdom. Just all of the things you've learned. You've learned a lot from your family. Most people have learned a lot of things from society. Many people from religion. But probably for all of you, the most learning area of your life simply has been your experience. It's just all the stuff you've been through. Helped maybe by your family, friends, religion, society, but probably in the long run, it's simply the things you've learned from your experiences. And this higher mind has given us what we like to call spiritual principles. Spiritual principles. They are just principles that illumine life. You've just learned these principles. A very simple principle would be that, well, if somebody is very negative to you or very critical of you, it doesn't mean you have to become real defensive and jump into their mud puddle. If that's the way they're going to be, that's fine. Doesn't mean you have to be like that. Or another principle is you're creating your reality. Nobody is making your reality except you. Your higher mind just knows that. And whenever you're in a very difficult situation, rather than saying, oh my gosh, oh wait a minute, take a moment, step back, look at it from what you've known. Ah yes, another way of looking at it. I can do it this way. So that your higher mind is just a wonderful, wonderful place. There isn't any noise in your higher mind. In your lower mind, lots of noise. Jim Self always calls it mother, father, teacher, preacher, the voices in your head going on and on and on. But in your higher mind, it's a still point. Ah yes, just that place. And then, in addition to your higher mind, you have a second still point that is very important, and I'm just going to call it the opened heart. The opened heart. Your opened heart, your inner place of feeling, it's precognitive. It's not something you have to think about. It's very intuitive. It's something that you feel. You just know it's right. No one has to tell you. It's just the place of your values in life. I always like to share this little incident. It was always helpful with my college student. If you're a college student and you don't have too much money and you're going to the grocery store, and as you're going into the store, an elderly person comes out of the store and they trip and fall and their groceries get strewn on the sidewalk there, and you're coming by and they're moaning and they're bleeding, and you look at them and then you say, geez, there's peanut butter and there's bread, and if I just took those, no one would know, and I don't have any money. Well, probably you wouldn't do that. Probably you'd say, well, that person is hurting, let me help that person. There's just something within you. There's something within you that you just know is right. And someone says, why are you doing that? You just say, because it's the right thing to do. It's what I know. And we have that wonderful saying from Blaise Pascal, the heart has reasons, the mind knows not of. There's just certain things within yourself that you just know. So that the heart is kind of like, in a sense, it's the place of your intuitive values. It's the place where you just know what's right. It's the place of your deepest feelings. It's the place of your deepest feelings. And one of the most beautiful things about these two still points is what is logical will always feel right. What feels right always makes sense. These two are always in harmony. They're never butting heads. They always support each other. Some people come at life a little more from their head. They like to think it through. That's fine. Some people come at life a little bit more from their feelings. That's fine. Because what feels right will always make the best sense. What always makes the best sense will always feel right, depending upon your sense of self. Now, one more thing about your sense of self, then I want to review, and then we want to pose, in a sense, the movement forward. What becomes quite interesting then is a simple question, and that is, how high is your higher self? That's a pretty interesting question. How high is your higher self? So I'm going to suggest two areas that we're going to employ in the second session today. That your higher self, in a sense, is connected to two particular energies. The first one is your highest sense of self, or the highest individuation of who you are, and I'm simply going to call that general term your soul, so that your higher self is connected to your soul, that individuated part of you that is part of the universal God energy. So that when you say, how high is my higher self, we can just say that there's kind of a soul, so that when you are in touch with your higher self, when you are in touch either with your higher mind or with that heartfelt place within you, that you're in touch with the truest part of who you are. And that part, that soul within you, is itself in touch with the universal God energy, or the universal source energy. So we're just going to call it the source. So that as you're sitting here right now, just by way of a brief review, where's your sense of self? Where's your sense of self? There's a lot of places you can choose from, and sometimes it changes by the hour, maybe by the day, the week, whatever. But what we're trying to engage in is, what is my truest sense of self? And particularly, we want to try to understand it with meditation. We're getting there, just a little bit more to go. So you begin to realize that I have to determine my sense of self. For many people, the sense of self is something external to them. It comes from more outside of them. Their life circumstances and or their thoughts and emotions that are tied up with their life circumstances. And for many people, they're very unsettled because they know that they're not in control of those things. Another possibility would be that, well, there's another sense of self, and there's that higher sense of self that comes from my higher mind and from my soul, that when I get rid of the noise of what's going on, just even for a moment, I can kind of go within and, ah yes, here I am. Okay, now what do you know? What do you feel? So different than, oh my God, look what's going on. It just depends on your sense of self. What sense of self do you really have as your sense of self? And particularly you begin to realize that this higher sense of self, it might be a part of even something higher. It might be a part of kind of that eternal part of you made in the image and likeness of the divine. Or you might feel that it's connected right with that divine image right now, right with that divine energy. Regardless of your sense of self, for right now, there's a battle that goes on. And the battle that goes on is, just see if this is true. Who's in charge of your mind and emotions? The way you're going to show up in the world. This is the battleground. The lower inner you is the battleground. The lower inner you is the way you show up in the world. It's the way you walk around in the world. Will the lower inner you, your thoughts and emotions, will they come from the outer you, or will they come from the higher inner you? That's a very, very, very important thing to be able to understand. So when we're talking about your sense of self, what becomes extremely important is to realize, in a sense, well, who is going to be in control of the lower inner you? It's going to depend on your sense of self. Because for many people, the way they show up in the world is pretty well coming from their outer self, their life circumstances, or their physicality. And this has a tendency to determine how they're going to show up in the world. On the other hand, if your sense of self is from a higher sense of self, then the way you're going to show up in the world, despite what is going on in the world, is going to be coming from your higher self. You just have a choice as to how you're going to show up. The obvious choice would be, I think, for most people is you would like to show up from your highest self, because that's where you're the smartest and that's where you have your best values. Has what we said made sense so far? So I'm going to talk about meditation now. We want to tie all of this together, but it really boils down to your sense of self. So meditation by way of a definition, simplest definition, meditation is simply accessing your higher self. Meditation is accessing your higher self so that it will guide your, thoughts and emotions, so that you will live more effectively in the world. You'll make better decisions. Doesn't mean you don't have challenges, but you'll be able to deal with them much more effectively when you're coming from your higher self. Just take a moment, just want you to kind of digest the definition. So meditation, I'm suggesting to you today, is simply accessing your higher self, your soul, because it's the best part of you. It has your highest wisdom, and it has your deepest values. So as you go through life, the whole purpose of meditation, quite simply, is to access the higher part of you so that it will guide the way you show up in the world. And the way you show up in the world will be your thoughts, your emotions, as they affect then your life circumstances and your physicality. Just going to say it again. Many different ways to approach meditation, but I think this is the most realistic one. And this is the one that I most want you to know about yourself. It all depends on your sense of self. How have you come to see yourself? And what we would aspire to is we would see ourselves in our higher self level, which is a combination of our higher reflection, our higher minds, and our deepest feelings. And these two working harmoniously will give guidance to our thoughts and emotions to deal with life, to make our lives much better, not just to deal with challenges, but heck, to make our lives happier, to make our life circumstances more joyful, and even to bring the highest parts of ourself into expression. So it's not just, well, let me just deal with my problems. It'll do that, help you to make much better decisions. But the real joy is making your everyday stuff better and then bringing forth your best stuff. Because for many people, the best stuff doesn't come forward because they're not in touch with their best self. Therefore, the lower self has a tendency to be all they got to bring things forward with. And the only arena is their life circumstances as opposed to the higher inner energy that is within them. Does that at least make sense to you? Well, the question is, well, how do we do this? How do you get in touch with your higher self to make this happen? And that's exactly what meditation is about. So what I'm going to teach you is a basic meditation, but I just want you to understand the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to access your higher self so that it will then guide how you show up, because you're here to embody the spark of your soul. If you never know your higher self, you're never going to know the spark that's in there. That's why many people are just confused. It's not that they're bad or anything like that. We just don't realize the beautiful possibilities that are within us. Well, how do you get rid of all of this noise? The outside noise isn't so bad, but darn it, that noise in your head is the hardest thing in the world. So I'm going to just give you a very simple notion of what we're going to achieve in meditation, and then we're going to do it. Now, whenever you're talking about meditation, I just want to tell you, there's 1,000 techniques. You ought to try this, you ought to try that. There are 1,000 techniques, and they all work. I just want to tell you, they all work if you do them, and you're in control of yourself to get to your higher self. They all work. I'm going to teach you the simplest one. It's the only one you ever need to know. It's the one I use. But there's 1,000 techniques, and do the one that you most like to do. But before we get to the technique, what becomes extremely important is that in meditation, there is one goal and there's one principle. So let's just make sure we have the goal and the principle down. So if you're going to meditate, just realistically, there's only one goal. And that goal very simply is to reach your higher self for guidance. I mean, that's the goal of meditation, to reach your higher self, your soul, for guidance. Now that guidance could be 1,001 different things. It could be the expansion of your life. It could be dealing with a problem. In the next session, in session 2, we're going to frame an intention of our higher self, and then we're going to do it. I mean, it's really going to be fun. But before we get there, we have to get here. So the goal is always to access your higher self to guide how you're going to show up. There's only one principle at this stage, one principle. And once you understand the principle, it has 2 parts to it, but it's really one principle. The principle of meditation to be effective is your mind can't focus on 2 things at the same time. Your mind cannot focus on 2 things at the same time. When I was in college, I would tell my students this. I could just see them try to do that. So it can't. It's either going to be here, it's going to be there. And then the corollary of that, your mind can't focus on 2 things at the same time, is that it's kind of the law of attraction. Whatever you focus on increases. Whatever you stop focusing on decreases. So let's just kind of keep that in mind. Your mind can't be on 2 things at the same time. If you focus on one thing, that's going to increase. What you stop focusing on is going to decrease. I know you're already seeing the connection. So if you can focus on something that is not the noise of your life or the noise in your head, then you'll be able to access the highest part of you. It's right there, just waiting for you to come in. Just a lot of noise, a lot of distractions that take you out of that. So what we're going to do is to teach you something that will help you get rid of the distractions, the externals and the internals. Is there such a thing? Absolutely. We're going to use it here, and then we're going to use it at a higher level in the second session. So the goal of our meditation today is to bring you into this soul experience, to bring you into this experience of knowing this. In our second session, we're then going to embody it specifically in ways that are just kind of fun. They're just fun. But before we do that, we're going to get into our soul awareness, and we're going to do it simply by focused breathing. We're going to focus on our breathing. And if you focus on your breathing, then realistically what's going to occur is you're going to get rid of the noise, external and internal, so you'll be able to listen to your higher self. I can guarantee, I think, for probably every one of you in around 25 minutes, you're just going to feel like you're in La La Land, because you will be in La La Land. But it really boils down to this. We're going to focus on the breathing. I'm going to give you 3 sets of guide words. You might want to just jot these words down, these 3 sets of guide words. In and out, calm and flow, deep and peace. So let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to focus on our breathing. We're going to use these guide words. I'm going to guide you through it. Then the idea is to get rid of the noises so that we can access that presence within ourselves. Then I'm going to take you into some maybe a little deeper experiences. Okay? In our second session, we're going to pick up where we leave off here, and then we're going to take it into another experience of embodiment, and it will be fun. Okay? When we do our breathing today, I'm just going to suggest to you, we're just going to do your natural breathing rhythm. Doesn't have to be any like, just your natural breathing rhythm. That's all you're going to need to do. Just going to need to focus as best you can. You can't do it wrong. You're going to be quite successful. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm going to turn the lights off a little bit so we get those down, and I'm going to sit and do it with you. Yes, you're good. You're okay. Oh, sorry. That's fine. Thank you, dear. The second session will be a tad more powerful, but from this session, whatever ill you have, this will cure you. It's just a wonderful, wonderful meditation. So I'm going to sit down and meditate with you. Let me just give you a couple of ideas about meditation that might be helpful to you. First of all, you're not training to be a guru to go to the Himalayas, so just be nice and relaxed. Very, very simple. And the best way for meditation, but do what's comfortable, is your feet on the ground as best you can. But the more important thing is, whenever a teacher said to you to sit up straight, that's the essence of meditation. Keeping your head, your neck, your back, and your buttocks to line, as though you have kind of a rod there. What we don't want to do is start nodding. You're going to be very relaxed, that I just want to tell you. But it's just kind of nice to sit up nice and straight. We'll be closing our eyes. It's easier to get rid of the distractions. But when you're sitting up nice and straight, now if you have to cough, cough. If you have to scratch, scratch. If you have to reposition yourself, because if you don't, you'll just be thinking about what you feel like doing. Is just another noise in your head to get rid of. It'll just be fun. We're going to focus on 2 breathing areas. We're going to start with the nose, and we're going to go to the chest and the lungs. So we're going to start with the nose, and we're going to then go to the chest and the lungs. It'll be very, very easy to follow. Just enjoy this. Just enjoy it. Give it your best shot. So I'm going to ask that we just kind of just begin by setting an intention that I really want to learn this meditation technique. I'm really going to give it my fullest attention. Commit yourself now to this meditation experience. Now, before I give you specific guidance, what I'm going to ask that you do is simply just focus on your natural breathing rhythm. Don't worry about anything right now. I just want you for just a moment, just focus on your natural breathing, the breath coming in and the breath going out. Just focus on your natural breathing rhythm. Nothing forced. Just do a few of those for yourself. Okay, with that in mind, just ask you to nicely just kind of breathe your eyes closed. Can't do it wrong. This will just be absolute fun. I'm going to ask you now just to focus on your nose, your nasal breathing. And when you focus on your nose, most of us breathe through our nose and or our mouths, you'll notice the air coming in and the air going out. So what I'd like to ask you to do, focusing on the breath coming in and out of your nose, on the in-breath, just say to yourself the word in. On the out-breath, say to yourself the word out. It'll help you to focus at the beginning. If a thought comes into your mind, just let it come in, let it pass, and get back to the in and the out. Please begin. You're doing just fine. Now, maintaining a focus on your nose, what I'd like to ask you to do is don't say the words in and out, but just focus on the breath, the air coming in and going out. Focus on the in and the out at your nasal region. If a thought comes into your mind, just let it pass and refocus simply on the breath coming in and out. Please begin. Well done, well done. We're now going to focus our attention on our heart or lung area. It works best if you just put your hand over your heart-lung area. And we're going to begin, again, using your natural breathing rhythm. We're going to begin with the first set of guide words again, in and out. When you inhale, just feel the subtle rise in your chest as your lungs inflate. And when you exhale, just feel the subtle decline in your lungs as they deflate. Focus on your lungs. Say in and out. If a thought comes in, just let it go and refocus. Please begin. Now, with your hands remaining on your heart, would you just now feel the in and the out? Don't say the words, but just feel the breath coming in, the breath going out. Focus, concentrate, but nothing forced. If a thought comes in, let it go and just refocus on the feeling of the in and the out in your lung heart area. Please begin. Lovely, just lovely. You may put your hand back on your lap. And would you notice two things before we proceed? Would you notice a sense of calmness? Just a sense of being settled, noticeable than when you first began. And would you notice how the rhythm of your breathing has slowed? Not quite as fast. A very nice pace, but a little slower. Let's proceed. As you again focus on your heart-lung area, let us now use the second set of guide words. On the in-breath, would you say to yourself the word calm? On the out-breath, the word flow. Breathe in calm, exhale flow. Be attentive, nothing forced. If a thought comes in, let it pass. Please begin. Now what I ask you to do is not say the words, but focus on the energy of the words. When you inhale, feel a sense of calmness coming into you. When you exhale, feel that calmness flowing out of you. Feel the energy of calm, flow. Concentrate, but nothing forced. Please begin. Let's now proceed to the third set of guide words. On the in-breath, say to yourself the word deep. On the out-breath, the word peace. Breathe in deep. Exhale, peace. Stay focused, concentrate, but easy. Nothing forced. Please begin. Now what I ask you to do is to, again, focus on the rhythm of your breathing, but rather than saying the words deep peace, on the in-breath, just go into the depth of your own self. And on the out-breath, express the peace and let it flow out of you. Feel the energy in you of deep peace. Please begin. Well done. And just before we go on, would you notice again how peaceful, how calm you are? Content. Nice. And how your breath is almost not even noticeable. You're just aware. I'm now going to give you a phrase that I would just ask that you repeat to yourself slowly And in your own rhythm, very simple little phrase, but just say it reflectively. Draw it into yourself. The phrase is, I am in perfect peace. I am in perfect peace. Now, would you stop saying the phrase and just feel peaceful? Focus on your inner peace. Feel it. Would you now say to yourself, this is me. This is me. Just say it again to yourself. This is me. This is me. Say to yourself, this is the me that I've always known as me. This is me. I've always known this sense of self to be me. I know this. I know myself. Would you go a step further and say, this is the me that I want to express in my everyday living. This is the me that I want to come through. This happy, joyful me. Would you say to yourself, this is the me that I want to embody. This is the me that I want to bring forth. This is me. You are now in your soul. Your home. Stay with the feeling. Feel yourself. Feel what it's like to be you. It's quite palpable, quite real. Notice the smile within you. This feels so good. And would you just enjoy yourself for a moment? Just enjoy yourself. This is you. Just take another moment. Enjoy the feel of yourself, what you feel like. Introduce yourself to you. Become one. Return now to the rhythm of your breathing. Notice how you're still there. No thought, just aware. Aware that you're aware. Still. No noise. And just when you're ready now, bring your attention back into this room. Into your body persona. Opening up its eyes and allowing the beauty of yourself to shine through. Should feel pretty good by now. Yeah, just lovely. Just lovely. Ah, this is me. Ah, This is when I desire to be my all the time, eyes open, walking around in the world sense of self. I want to embody this, to bring heaven to earth. Yes, makes perfect sense now that I know who I am. We're now going to take our break, but before we do, let me just briefly describe what we're going to do after the break. This sense of self that you're pretty well feeling right now, we're going to recapture it, and then we're going to bring it into a specific embodiment of your choice. And I'm going to give you some rudiments of doing that. and some ways of doing it by way of breath and sound and color that'll just be absolute fun. So, oh boy, we're at 2:30 almost, so let's try by 10 of 3 to get back if we can, okay? And please use the restroom, enjoy the snacks over here by 10 of 3. Namaste. Thank you.